Last pick, I left off picking the Dolphins over the Colts. Next game is Bills at Texans. Bills, they have a good running game and a good set of backs with Jackson and Spiller. Ryan Fitzpatrick, on and off quarterback, not really that great. The Bills defense, I think they're kind of overrated. Mario Williams really hasn't been the spark that they wanted him to be. So, and their secondary, they look pretty good sometimes, but when you're not going to pass rush, you can't really get that many sacks. The Texans, unbelievable this year. They're a very complete team. I'm not going to go out and say that they're the most complete team. Their secondary is a little overrated. They got Jonathan Joseph back there, but they have some old players in there. Brady James at middle linebacker. He's from Dallas, where Wade Phillips came from. They have a couple older players in there that really are past their prime, and they're still slightly productive, but not complete players like everyone's making them out to be. I'm still going to take the Texans, though, because they're at home. Not because they're at home, but because they're versing us. Not very good Bills team. Next is Vikings at Seahawks. Vikings were pretty much shown up by the Buccaneers and proved that they were truly overrated. And the Seahawks, they have a rookie quarterback, so they're going to play like him on and off every couple weeks. Marshawn Lynch, he's been a spark. He's been lightning in a bottle for them these past 3 years, I think, since he came over from the Bills. And the Seahawks also have a great secondary. Not a great secondary. Secondary isn't always 100% consistent, but when you have a great secondary against a subpar quarterback, and Christian Ponder, who I thought was a lot better than he was proven to be, but he's actually not. Adrian Peterson, I think he'll have a decent day against them. The secondary can tackle, so he's not gonna. I don't think he'll wind up breaking that many runs for long gains. His longest run will probably around 20 or so yards. I wouldn't be surprised if he breaks one or two. But I think the Seahawks have a pretty good defense. And their offense, if they can just mix it up and get some play action in there after just running up to go with Marshawn Lynch, I think that they will have a good day against the Vikings. Where the Vikings, Jared Allen, I think he's a little overrated, more of a pass rusher, not a pure defensive end. Next game is Buccaneers at Raiders. This one is also a tough one. Buccaneers have looked good in the past couple weeks. Doug Martin, he's looked like he's the best running back out of that draft. Trent Richardson, he has some off games because they're constantly giving him the ball, or they're just throwing it because they're down. Where the Raiders, Darren McFadden, injury-prone running back, he hasn't gotten that bad banged up this year. And Carson Palmer, he's been a bust pretty much his whole career. He hasn't really shown up in the playoffs when he's made it, and he doesn't make it to the playoffs that often. And he's also a little bit injury-prone. The Raiders' defense really hasn't been anything since Nnamdi left. Richard Seymour, he's a pretty good player. He's getting to his prime or past his prime, but yeah, I'm going to take the Buccaneers because they're a young team, and the Raiders are just a fast team. I think if the Buccaneers don't allow too many big plays, they can beat the Raiders. So I'm going to take the Bucs. And Steelers at Giants. I don't pick against the Giants because I'm a diehard Giants fan. And the Steelers, their running game doesn't look great. They're running the ball pretty good because their offensive line is injury riddle. David Castro, their first-round pick, he's out for the year. Ben Roethlisberger, he's playing with a torn rotator cuff. I'm not sure if it's still torn. They have a lot of big play guys. Mike Wallace, Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown was backpedaling after he scored a punt return touchdown. I don't think Mike Tomlin liked that too much, but it was brought back because of a penalty. The Giants, they didn't look great against the Cowboys, I'm going to tell you that. Their defense didn't look great. They got easy turnovers. Stevie Brown had a nice pick at the end of the game, but that Romo was just throwing it away. They got probably one turnover fairly. Their offense didn't look too hot, but they're playing at home, and I just can't fight against the Giants. The Steelers will have a great chance of winning this game, and if their big plays keep them, they'd really. Mike Wallace hasn't had that many big plays this year after his holdout. Antonio Brown, he might be the best receiver on that team. Mike Wallace had a bunch of drops against the Bengals a couple of weeks ago. And I think if the Giants secondary steps up like they did last week, where they got in Dallas' face a little bit, they didn't, towards the end, they really just gave up, and they didn't play that well. And Steelers, Heath Miller, I think he could go off like Jason Witten did. He's playing great this year. He plays pretty good every year, but this year he's playing great. So the Steelers are going to have a chance, but I'm going to pick the Giants. Then it's Cowboys at Falcons. Falcons undefeated. Cowboys looked great in the second half last week. Atlanta, they're pretty complete. I mean, the running game could be a little better. Michael Turner doesn't always get the production you would like. He's not always there when you need him. Their offense pretty explosive. Julio Jones is always looking to go deep, and so is Roddy White. He's got pretty sure hands. Tony Gonzalez, he's proved that he's not past his prime. Well, at least he's past his prime, but he's proved that he's not done in the NFL. Asante Samuel, he's been great for them. Great piece for their secondary. The secondaries look pretty good this year. Usually they allow so many big plays. But the Cowboys secondary looked even better. They just look great this year. I think the Dallas looked great in the second half, and I think they're going to keep it up against the Falcons, so I'm going to pick, this is my wild card, the Cowboys over the Falcons. And finally, the Monday night game, Eagles at Saints. Eagles, Michael Vick just hasn't looked good. But this Saints secondary, worst in the league, and that's a statistic. Saints offense, they didn't look good against the Broncos. Broncos have a great defense, and I think Todd Bowles is going to get this defense together. Todd Bowles he coached Miami. He was the assistant. He was the interim coach there a couple years ago. Then he moved to secondaries coach in Philly. And he's a great coach. He motivates his players. I think that since he's going to motivate them, I don't think the Saints are going to be able to stop Michael Vick because their secondary is just so bad. And for LaShawn McCoy, he hasn't really gotten that many yards because they're always throwing the ball, the Eagles. If they mix in the runs, play action over the top, they're probably the most explosive team in the NFL, but they haven't gotten anything yet. So I think the Eagles are going to wind up beating the Saints because Saints defense has looked awful, even though Spagnuolo is a great defensive corner. So I'm taking the Eagles. My Week 9 NFL picks. This is Grown 97 signing out.